She turned my lawn into a wedding venue, so I planted a fortress. I stepped outside to water my tomatoes and nearly dropped the hose. A white carpet stretched across my front yard like a red carpet for royalty. Rose petals scattered the grass, folding chairs lined up like a boot camp parade, and a full wedding arch towered over my freshly mulched flower bed. A guy with a headset barked orders at decorators hammering stakes into my soil, and sipping coffee like she owned the sunrise was Karen, my neighbor, HOA president, and apparently now the self-appointed wedding planner of property she didn't own. I asked headset guy what the hell was going on. He glanced at his clipboard and said, "Simmons' wedding starts at 4. We'll clean up by night." I blinked. "This is my yard," he shrugged. "Take it up with her," nodding at Karen. "We just follow orders." Karen smiled that smug little smile, the one she saves for when she's about to bulldoze logic with delusion. "It's just one day," she chirped. "You weren't using it. It's for my niece's special moment. Don't be difficult." Difficult? I looked down at the crushed tomatoes, the heel prints in my petunias. My garden destroyed. I said no. Hard number. This wedding wasn't happening here. Karen waved me off like I was a bug buzzing too close. "You're the only one in the neighborhood who clings to ownership like it's a throne," she sniffed. "This is shared space. Look at the HOA map." She pulled out a laminated sheet like it was the Constitution. I took one glance, laughed. It was an old zoning proposal from 5 years ago. My deed was current. No easement, no shared space. This was my land, period. But Karen didn't care about deeds. Karen cared about control. "Not today, Karen," I called the HOA office. No answer. It was Saturday, of course. I stepped back outside just in time to see a woman in a peach dress trying to parallel park in my driveway. 2 kids were chasing each other through my flower beds, stomping through blossoms I'd babied for months. One of them smacked a balloon into my porch railing. The DJ tested his mic, unleashing a burst of static so loud the birds evacuated the trees. And that's when it clicked. This wasn't a wedding. This was a hostile takeover. Karen knew exactly what she was doing. I marched over to the DJ and told him to pack it up. He looked baffled, glanced toward Karen, then shrugged. "I just play the playlist, man. Take it up with the client." Client? On my lawn? The photographer didn't hesitate to trample through my vegetable patch to get the perfect angle. That was it. I went inside, grabbed my home purchase folder, scanned the deed, and emailed it to myself, and to a friend of mine who works for city zoning. I texted her, "My front yard is legally mine, right?" She texted back one word, "Yep." That was all I needed. I printed the documents, poured a cup of coffee, and walked back outside like a man who'd had enough. I handed the papers to Karen. She didn't even glance at them. "I don't need your fake paperwork," she snapped. "The wedding starts in 2 hours. You can either support your community or keep isolating yourself." I blinked. Support means helping someone move a couch, Karen, not letting 80 strangers trample my begonias while 2 people get married under a stolen arch. She laughed. "It's just grass. Grow up." I stepped closer. Calm. Cold. Number. "It's my grass, and this is your last warning?" She rolled her eyes. "We'll be gone before sunset. You'll barely know we were here." She was right about one thing, because by the time she was done, I was going to make sure no one ever walked across my lawn again. Not in heels, not barefoot, not even in their dreams. But first, I waited. From inside, I started filming everything. Smile for the police report guests kept arriving. A party bus rolled up, unloading bridesmaids who strutted across my lawn like it was a red carpet. Karen's niece, the bride, walked by holding a Starbucks and shouted, "This is such a vibe! Auntie Karen, you're a genius!" I bit my lip so hard I tasted blood. I glanced at my tomato patch, destroyed. One tomato was split open like a crime scene. A stiletto heel stabbed into the soil beside it like evidence. That was it. I poured a glass of water, went to the garage, and pulled out old yard signs from my landscaping days. Flipped them over, grabbed a marker. Private property, no trespassing, do not enter. I lined them along the sidewalk just as the DJ cranked up the music. Karen walked over, arms folded, smiling that same smug smile. "If you're going to be petty," she said, "at least be quiet about it." I didn't say a word. I turned my phone camera on, pointed it straight at her and said, "Smile. This'll look great in the police report." The smile vanished. But she didn't back down. Not yet. Because in Karen's mind, this was still her HOA kingdom, her show, her rules. What she didn't know was she'd just lit a match, and I was the wildfire waiting to burn her fantasy isle to the ground. Revenge. Rooted deep. Sunday morning felt like the aftermath of a battlefield. My once pristine lawn, trashed. There were chair tracks, scuffed soil, crushed petals, and one sad balloon still bobbing on my mailbox like a final insult. But I wasn't sulking. I was humming. Because I had a plan. One that would be perfectly legal, completely petty, and painfully poetic. I didn't scroll revenge blogs. Well, maybe one or two. But mostly I researched gardening forums, city landscaping codes, and zoning laws. I wanted something permanent, something that said, "Don't even think about it." That's when I found them. Thorn bushes. Not the cute decorative kind. Number these were dense, deep-rooted, medieval-looking plants used for natural security landscaping. Translation? A botanical fortress. I ordered 36 saplings from a nursery out of town. The guy on the phone even laughed when I told him what they were for. "Ah, HOA drama," he said. "You're not the first, but you might be my favorite." By Monday afternoon, they arrived, and I got to work, digging under the hot sun, sweat stinging my eyes, my back screaming at me to stop. But I didn't. I was building a wall, 6 feet deep. Thick enough to stop a marching band, planted just inches from the sidewalk, well within my legal boundary. Each bush had a tag. Caution, thorny. I left them on. Let them serve as a warning. Neighbors slowed down when they passed, some gawking, a few nodded in quiet approval. One offered to help. I waved him off. This was personal. By dusk, I stood on my porch, covered in dirt, staring at my masterpiece. I added one sign in the center, "Private property. No trespassing, not even for weddings." Simple. Director. Beautiful. The thorn awakens. The next morning, Karen saw the bushes. I watched from behind the curtains as she strutted past with her tiny designer dog. Until she stopped cold. Her eyes locked on my new hedge of doom like she was staring at barbed wire. She blinked. Once, twice, processing. Her jaw clenched so tight I thought she might crack a crown. Her dog barked, lifted a leg toward one of the bushes, then yelped and jumped back, pricked his paw. Karen yanked the leash and stormed off like the sidewalk had personally insulted her. By noon, I got the first email. From the HOA's generic inbox, but every syllable screamed, Karen. "Dear homeowner, we've received reports of aggressive landscaping that may pose a safety hazard to pedestrians and pets. Please consider replacing these bushes with a more community-friendly alternative." I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to my friend at City Zoning with pictures and my property lines. Her response: "You're golden. Nothing illegal. Let them howl." That evening, I was taking out the trash when Karen marched over like she was about to deliver a lecture to a rebellious teenager. "Those bushes are dangerous," she hissed. "What if a child gets hurt? What if someone trips? What if my dog bleeds to death?" I replied calmly. "Then they probably shouldn't be in my yard, which, last I checked, is clearly marked private property." Her eyes narrowed. "You're doing this to punish me." I didn't even deny it. "Absolutely. And I'm doing it legally. Kinda like how you threw a wedding on land you don't own." She tried to spin it, said I was overreacting, that it was just one joyful day. I reminded her she forged documents, ignored boundaries, let 80 strangers destroy my garden. So no, I wasn't overreacting, I was reacting just enough. She stormed off, muttering something about an emergency HOA board meeting. I smiled, because Karen finally understood I wasn't just some grumpy neighbor. I was the homeowner she never should have messed with. The meeting where Karen lost everything. 2 days later, every door in the neighborhood had the same flyer taped to it. Urgent HOA meeting proposed new landscaping rules to protect community safety and aesthetics. It didn't have my name on it. Didn't need to. Everyone knew exactly who it was about. I showed up to the meeting, binder in hand, portable speaker in my backpack, just in case Karen got creative. Of course, it was hosted at her house, lavender air freshener and judgment in every corner. She opened with a full-blown monologue. Something about unity, order, and how certain uncooperative homeowners were choosing intimidation over collaboration. She didn't look at me once, but she didn't have to. Then she introduced her motion. All landscaping with aggressive or dangerous features must be approved by the HOA in advance and must not impede visual harmony. I raised my hand. She hesitated, then sighed. "Go ahead." I stood up and calmly reminded everyone that the HOA can't override private property deeds. There is no clause giving the board authority over personal landscaping. I had the deed, zoning confirmation, and a city response saying my bushes were perfectly legal. Then I played a short audio clip on my speaker. Karen's voice, from the wedding day. "You'll barely notice we were here." The room went silent. Someone in the back snorted. Karen turned the color of undercooked shrimp. The vote. Motion failed. 11-2. I smiled politely. Sat back down. Karen didn't say another word. On the way out, several neighbors gave me nods, quiet fist bumps. One whispered, "Honestly, you should have installed a laser fence." I laughed. "Don't tempt me." Across the room, Karen stood, frozen at her doorway, arms crossed, eyes burning holes into my back. But the fire was gone from her voice, because she finally knew. Her little HOA throne had just collapsed. Death by 1,000 petty notices. After the HOA meeting disaster, Karen went quiet. For about 48 hours. Then the notices started. The first one showed up folded in my mailbox like a love letter from a bitter ex. Violation notice. Trash bins visible from street view more than 30 minutes after pickup. I laughed. It was petty, even for Karen. But I played along, rolled my bins inside like a good little citizen, set a timer the next week, made sure they were out of sight in exactly 29 minutes. Then came the next one. Exterior light fixture too bright. Disrupts community ambiance. Community ambiance. I screwed in a dimmer bulb, took a photo with a Lux meter app, filed it away, just in case. Over the next week, I got 5 more notices. My lawn was too dry. My mailbox was leaning slightly. My door wreath was seasonally inappropriate. Spoiler. It was just a green wreath. No pumpkins, no bows, nothing. I started photographing everything, time-stamped, labeled. My living room looked like a crime scene investigation, but for gardening. It was obvious. This wasn't about community standards. It was about Karen. She wasn't just trying to annoy me. She wanted to wear me down. Death by 1,000 HOA cuts. But what she didn't realize, she was making me stronger. The more she pushed, the deeper I dug in, thorn bushes and all. And then, she crossed another line. The baby shower beat down. I didn't think she'd do it again, but this was Karen, queen of bad decisions. A flyer showed up in my mailbox, pink and floral, baby rattles, RSVP info. You're invited to a baby shower for one of Karen's dearest friends. Backyard photo shoot to be held in the beautifully landscaped space across the street. Across the street? That was my yard, with my thorn bushes. She was seriously about to do a maternity photo shoot in front of the natural barbed wire I had planted specifically to keep her out. So I waited. The day of the shower, I made myself a lemonade, sat on the porch, and hit record on my phone. Guests arrived in pastel dresses with tiny gift bags and big smiles. Some parked along my curb. Fine, legal. But then, they started walking toward my yard. Phones out, selfie sticks up, giggling. One woman, wearing heels the width of a toothpick, tried to wedge herself between two of the thorn bushes for a better angle. You can guess what happened next. Her heel slipped. She fell straight into the thorns, arms flailing, dress tearing, screaming like a horror movie extra. She jumped up covered in scratches, hair full of leaves, mascara running. I sipped my lemonade a little louder. Karen came sprinting over like her reputation was on fire. She crouched down, fake concerned, whispering frantically to the woman, then looked up and locked eyes with me. Furious, she stormed across the street, heels snapping like angry metronomes. "You set a trap!" she shrieked. "This is a lawsuit waiting to happen!" I stood up, calm as ever. She entered private property, ignored warning signs, and tried to use my landscaping as a backdrop. I have it all on video. Want me to send it to you? Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. She shook her head like reality was glitching. Then she did the most Karen thing imaginable. She pulled out her phone and called 911. 911, what's your emergency? Karen. Karen stood in the middle of my lawn, phone to her ear, yelling into 911 like she was reporting a hostage crisis. "Yes, I'm with a neighbor who installed dangerous plants designed to injure people. A guest is hurt. Yes, this is his address." 15 minutes later, 2 patrol cars pulled up. And guess what? One of the officers recognized me. He'd been there the day of the wedding invasion. He nodded politely. "Back again, huh?" I handed him my paperwork. Property deed, city zoning approval, photos, video footage. Meanwhile, Karen was still ranting behind him like a malfunctioning sprinkler system. She tried to say the bushes were planted with malicious intent, that I created a weaponized garden. The officer listened, nodding slowly, the way you do when you're waiting for someone to finish embarrassing themselves. Then he said, "Ma'am, this is private property with visible signage. No trespassing means no trespassing. If anything, your guest may want to reconsider her choice of footwear next time she walks into someone else's yard." Karen blinked like she'd been slapped with a polite brick. She sputtered something about HOA codes, safety regulations, the spirit of the community. But the officers were done. They left, without issuing a single citation. Karen had officially wasted her emergency call and publicly face-planted in front of her own guests. But did she stop? Oh no. The very next morning, another violation notice showed up in my mailbox. Yard signs create visual clutter and community discord. Remove immediately. That's when I knew. Karen wasn't just losing her grip. She was spiraling. And the whole neighborhood? They were watching. Going viral, the fall of a lavender tyrant. When I saw the new violation notice about visual clutter, I didn't even flinch. Karen was unraveling. And the best part, I wasn't the only one who noticed. Turns out, one of my neighbors had been quietly documenting the Thornbush saga on social media, posting updates, photos, even a clip of Karen yelling, "This is a lawsuit waiting to happen!" The post went viral, like full-on millions of views. Number HOA Karen trending viral. A few days later, a news van parked across the street. A local reporter knocked on my door asking for an interview. I said sure, and stood proudly in front of the thorn bushes like they were the Mount Rushmore of petty revenge. I told the whole story, showed her the paperwork, the signs, the footage, even played clips from the wedding day chaos. 2 days later, the segment aired under the headline, "Petty Plants and Power Struggles. Man Battles HOA Tyranny with Thorns." Karen was publicly humiliated, and that was the moment her kingdom started to crumble. Neighbors who once nodded politely at her began avoiding eye contact. People started asking questions. Why are we getting so many new HOA rules lately? Why is the budget going to flyers and mailers? Why is Karen acting like we're living in a gated monarchy? The HOA newsletter the next week? It had a full-page editorial written by Karen, "The Cost of Non-Cooperation, How One Neighbor Divides Us All." It didn't mention my name, but let's be honest. It might as well have been titled, "Help, I Got Owned by a Shrub." I printed that newsletter, framed it, hung it in the garage, right above my shovel. To me, it wasn't an insult. It was a trophy, proof that she was cracking and losing the one thing she valued most: control. The inspector cometh. The silence before a downfall always feels different, still, charged, like the air's holding its breath. That's exactly what it felt like the morning a city inspector's van pulled up in front of Karen's house. Clipboard under one arm, sunglasses on, casual like it was any other Tuesday. But it wasn't, because my anonymous little email, with a few polite questions about HOA permits and zoning compliance, had finally hit the city's radar. And guess whose name came up? Karen. For months, maybe years, she'd been making additions to her property. A pergola in the backyard? No permit. Widened, stamped concrete patio? Over the setback limit. That gazebo with twinkle lights she bragged about in every HOA newsletter? Completely illegal. And the irony? This was the same woman who cited neighbors for hanging the wrong kind of wind chimes. I sat on my porch, sipping coffee, and watched the inspector walk around her yard, taking photos, making notes. Karen tried to keep her composure, standing in the driveway, arms crossed, lips tight. But I could see it in her eyes. She was rattled. At one point, she glanced at me. I raised my coffee cup in a little salute. She turned away. By noon, the inspector was gone. By 3 p.m., Karen was pacing her yard on the phone, waving her arms, voice raised for everyone within 2 houses to hear. She was furious, demanding, trying to pull rank as community leadership. But here's the thing. The city doesn't care about your HOA title. For once in her life, Karen had to follow the rules she loved to weaponize. And it was breaking her. Coup at the clubhouse. The next HOA meeting wasn't just another lecture. It was a full-on political coup. For the first time in years, someone challenged Karen's position as president. Actually, 3 people did. One of them, Miss Evelyn, a retired librarian who rarely left her porch and hadn't shown up to a single HOA meeting before. But this time, she showed up with a binder thick as a dictionary and the calm confidence of someone who's survived way worse than Karen's nonsense. The community center was packed. Word had spread. People were tired of the violation notices, the flyers, the surprise HOA fines, the baby shower drama, the news crew. Karen tried to take control with one of her usual speeches, all about order and standards, and preserving the beauty of our shared space. But her voice cracked. Her eyes scanned the room, looking for backup. There was none. Then Miss Evelyn took the floor. She didn't shout, didn't point fingers. She just spoke with quiet clarity. The HOA should serve the community, not bully it. Rules should protect peace, not enforce personal vendettas. And no one is above the rules they claim to uphold. The room went silent. Then came the vote. It wasn't even close. Karen lost. Badly. She stood there pale, clutching her clipboard like it was a life vest on a sinking ship. And without a word, she walked out. That was the last time anyone ever saw her at a community meeting. But oh no, she didn't go quietly. She tried to fight from the shadows, sent out emails accusing Miss Evelyn of conspiracy, blamed me for manipulating the neighborhood. But nobody bit. She'd burned too many bridges. The new board got to work immediately. They reviewed her violations. They fined her. They started the process of tearing down every illegal structure she'd snuck onto her property. And the best part? That gazebo, her little sanctuary of gossip and cheap wine nights? The city taped a bright orange removal notice right on its side. I watched from my porch as she stood in her yard, screaming at the sky like some HOA Shakespeare villain. But no one was coming to save her. Just the sound of wind blowing softly through the thorn bushes across the street. Thorn bloom and barbecue smoke. It was a few weeks after the election when I decided to do something I'd never done before. I hosted a neighborhood barbecue. No big speech, no flyers, just a few lawn chairs, some burgers, a cooler full of drinks, and a handmade sign that said, "No weddings allowed." People laughed as they walked up. Some brought their own signs to stick in the yard. One said, "Thorn but fair." Another had a cartoon of a bride running from a bush. It was ridiculous, and it was perfect. Even Miss Evelyn came, carrying a tray of homemade cookies and a fold-out chair with a little floral cushion. She sat next to me, leaned in, and whispered, "I always hated that gazebo. Gaudy thing." We talked about normal stuff. Squirrels, tomatoes, mulch, the kind of boring peace that means a neighborhood is finally okay again. Across the street, Karen's house sat still and silent. Blinds closed, decorations gone, no HOA flyers taped to doors. Just silence. I heard she tried to sell the place, but buyers kept backing out. Apparently, viral HOA drama isn't great for curb appeal. Now and then, a stranger would stop on the sidewalk, point at my bushes, and smile like they'd found a local landmark. I didn't mind. I'd earned that notoriety. What started as an invasion of my garden became the turning point for the entire neighborhood. People remembered the wedding, the bushes, the fall of Karen, and every spring when those thorn bushes bloom, tiny white flowers wrapped around brutal, unapologetic branches, I smile, because they remind me, sometimes the best way to protect your peace is to plant sharp boundaries, water them with patience, and let the sunlight of consequences do the rest.